Uncertainty looms beneath the torch of Lady Liberty, where an erratic stock market, corporate bailouts, and financial fraud allegations have all kept the bull market at bay. For months, Americans have grappled with the woes on Wall Street, seeking solutions for an economic turnaround. One diagnosis that is gaining populist support has drawn crowds to Philadelphia and other cities around the country, where rallies have been held to bring attention to the role played by the Federal Reserve in the economy.
When the Federal Reserve issues more currency, most of it's electronic, but they also print money. It takes the value of the dollar and dilutes it, and because of that, your currency is worth less and less and less as it goes on. And most people take that for granted. You don't even have any awareness that this is happening unless you pay attention to the fact that the Federal Reserve is basically stealing your money. It's making everything that you have less valuable. And that's even more egregious than the excessive tax burden that we have to carry as a country and the ridiculous spending that we are going on right now.
Still, not all see the solution so clearly. Efforts to pass a financial reform bill on Capitol Hill have been mired in establishment tactics and political compromise. Senator Chris Dodd has proposed a bill that would encumber the financial sector with more regulation while increasing the power of the Federal Reserve. Senator Bernie Sanders attempted to extend an olive branch to Fed skeptics by introducing an amendment to the bill that would allow for a one-time minimal audit of specific Federal Reserve transactions within a small window of time. This amendment passed unanimously, but only after it had been tremendously watered down from what many believed would have been a more appropriate and worthwhile audit of the Federal Reserve System. Senator David Vitter followed up with a more potent version of the audit amendment, but it failed to receive the necessary support. The Vitter Amendment, which was based on the Paul Grayson Amendment that passed in the House Financial Services Committee, took direct aim at the subsection of U.S. Code which prohibits the Government Accountability Office from auditing some of the most important functions of the Federal Reserve System. The list is broad and inclusive to the core functions of the Federal Reserve.
So my contention is that they deserve oversight. Actually, they deserve to be reined in where they can't do what they're doing. But initially, we have to have some oversight, and this is why this vote of only 37 senators willing to audit the Federal Reserve in a thorough manner and hold them in check, which means that there were 62 senators that support the idea of maintaining a status quo with the Fed, and that they will still be able to make these loans to these foreign central banks.
Disputes regarding the role of a central bank in the economy can be traced all the way back to our nation's founding, when Alexander Hamilton first introduced a national bank, much to the dismay of Thomas Jefferson. Hamilton viewed the bank as a facilitator of economic proliferation, saying that the bank may employ in circulation a great deal more money than the specie in stock, on the credit of the real property which they will have in other use. In other words, the bank can issue money as credit on the debt. Jefferson, however, saw this as an unsustainable system of growth, saying, "The principle of spending money to be paid by posterity under the name of funding is but swindling futurity on a large scale." The spending versus savings debate has been revisited in various forms throughout the nation's history, not only by politicians but also economists. Creative director John Popola put a unique spin on the primary dispute in modern economic policy. He produced a rap video in which the actors represent famed economic theorists John Maynard Keynes and Friedrich von Hayek.
Your focus on spending is pushing on thread. In the long run, my friend, it's your theory that's dead. So sorry there, buddy, if that sounds like invective. Prepare to get schooled in my Austrian perspective. We've been going back and forth for a second.
The difference between Keynes and Hayek is the difference between markets work and markets don't work. So Keynes says markets don't work, and you only achieve full employment by accident or by design. There's no order that emerges out of markets. And when I say markets, people, markets is sort of a terrible term because it sounds like it's this thing, like, oh, it's Wall Street or it's some entity. But markets is simply you and I, with our own plans and purposes, going out into the world and trying to pursue our ends peacefully. Hayek says order and the structure of production and consumption and what we do and how we interact emerges in a very sort of evolutionary way. And you and I go out into the marketplace and we find our way, and we use the knowledge that we have in our head, and other distant overlords can't get the knowledge we have in our head.
Centrally managed spendthrift economies have become the norm worldwide. We're witnessing economic disruption in the United States, and to a more volatile degree in Europe, where fears that financial instability in Greece may soon spread to other countries.
Right now, for instance, we have many countries very, very deep in debt and overextended, and if something causes not if, but when something causes the next economic slowdown, it's going to be even worse, because governments are now even deeper in debt. And when you have huge debts and huge debtor nations, especially when they're very, very large economies, when they start declining, it affects everybody. And the idea that we cannot have a worldwide depression is laughable on its face.
The reckless spending that has occurred throughout the world is encouraged by the fact that central bank currencies are no longer linked to tangible assets, meaning that there is no inherent limit on the amount of money they can create. This is called fiat currency, and it is very different from sound money.
For several thousand years, sound money meant a gold standard. A gold standard is important because it is the value of an ounce of gold is very, very stable over time. Therefore, if you link the currency to gold, you would expect that the value of the currency would be stable over time. And that, in fact, is what happened when man had a gold standard. Government, Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, basically gives Congress responsibility for the United States monetary system. It says nothing there about making it the monopoly of money. The only thing government really has a right to is determine the medium of exchange in which taxes are paid. This should not limit you and I for dealing in Swiss francs or gold or anything else. When you don't have an honest money or sound money, but honest is also another word that's applicable, then other aspects of the economy are not honest. This financial crisis that we've been living through for 2 years is a good example of dishonest finance. And dishonest finance is going to be, come whenever you have a dishonest monetary system.